right. Thank you, everybody, for coming on. We'll be getting started shortly. I have the district attorney on, deputy district attorney on. He'll be jumping on right now. Yes, ma'am. I know you are, Miss Dunn. I got you.
We are Morgan and Morgan.
Pastor Bowie, I see you in there. Welcome, sir. Thank you so much for jumping on.
For this wildfire, some things are just.
We'll be getting started shortly. I have our guest speaker on the line. We'll be getting started right on the hour. Waiting for a few more people to jump on. All right. Anybody have any cameras working? Am I going to be the only one on camera today? There's a lot of beautiful faces out there. Let's see a couple of them.
Yeah, free. Cielo, when you download our app, Morongo.
Got somebody that needs to be muted. Who is that? There we go. All right. All right, we got a couple of more minutes before we get started. Michelle, that's fine. She can jump on when she's ready. Okay. All right. Just a couple more. Let me see. All right, here we go. All right. Happy Tuesday, everyone. How you doing? I see someone speaking. Felicia, how you doing? Pastor Bowie, Felicia?
Hello, sir.
All right. All right. So we're going to be getting started in exactly 1 minute. So come on in. Make sure you got your drinks. Pastor Bowie, how you doing?
Listen, I'm in your presence, sir, and thank you for inviting me out.
Oh, no, Pastor. You have no idea how excited I am to have you on. I'm hoping you'll get a chance to meet Mr. Hicks live and in person. I'm pretty excited about this particular meeting. So, I've been working on getting more community presentations together so people can be more informed. So, you're a leader of a congregation, so this is going to be exciting. And as usual, I'm a highly motivated, excited person. So I'm looking forward to seeing where we go with this. So let me go ahead and get started with the preamble. Mr. Hicks, if you can stop sharing for a second, I want everybody to see your face.
There you go.
There you go. I want them to know who you are. We're going to have more people popping in, so hopefully that doesn't disturb you, but it's right there on the top of the hour. Hello, everyone. My name is Tony Warfield. Thank you so much for being on this afternoon. I'm looking forward to this presentation this evening. I have a good friend of mine that I got a chance to meet during the last election campaign season, where he and we were vying for a gentleman named John McKitty for District Attorney of Los Angeles County. I got a chance to meet Todd, and he and I were, got a chance to be in parades and, working together on that campaign to get our guy in there. Our guy didn't win, but our guy did win a lot of hearts. And during the time I got a chance to learn more about Mr. Hicks, I learned how much he loves community, how much he supports the community, and I'm excited about him being here. He's actually been a deputy district attorney for more than 34 years. His 35th year will be in August this year, and he's done so many things for the community, and I'm excited about having him on. He's going to be doing a discussion tonight about getting over your past, and I'm hoping you have your pens and paper ready and your ears wide open, because this is going to be a really, really good opportunity. So without further ado, I give you Assistant Head Deputy District Attorney Todd Hicks.
Thanks, Tony, for that wonderful introduction. And it's one of the things we got from Mr. McKinney's loss. We got our friendship, Tony. So that was a great benefit to have.
Yes,
welcome,
sir.
everybody. As Tony said, I am a deputy district attorney. I've been here for coming up on 34 years now. I was a law clerk here for a period of time, and over my career, I've done many things. I was a trial deputy when I first started out, and then eventually I began a trial deputy in a couple of specialized elite trial units. One being the domestic violence unit. The second was the sex crimes unit. And then lastly, I was in the major crimes division, which dealt with high publicity, complex cases that you see on TV from time to time here in Los Angeles. After that, I became a supervisor of other lawyers. I started off in Compton, which we'll talk about in a little bit, in 2011. And I've been a supervisor at different places ever since. So basically 14 years now. I supervise large and small offices. I did a supervise an area dealing with justice reform and review and body cams and exonerations. I now work in an anti-corruption fraud unit here in the downtown LA area. I've been in downtown LA for the vast majority of my career. About 75% of my time has been here in downtown LA, and I enjoy it. So Tony is a wonderful resource when it comes to your financial literacy and your financial future. And he asked me to talk about how being involved in the justice system kind of dovetails in that and how to get yourself out of it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. Go. Everybody see that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So again, without further ado, my name is Todd Hicks, and we're talking about this afternoon getting over your past, particularly if you found yourself in the criminal justice system. Oh, it's frozen. Uh-oh.
I think you just got to tap it. I think your name's going to pop up. Tap
Okay.
that forward button, and then it should go right on through.
That seems to be working.
It does happen.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Let me try again.
In the bottom left, you should see the arrows. You see the arrows?
Oh, there it is. I see it. There we go. Okay, there we go. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there we go. All right. Sounds good. Here we go. Okay, so my name is Todd Hicks. I'm a DA for LA County. And like I said before, my first job as a supervisor was at the Compton courthouse. I was in charge of the juvenile division there, and I was there for 5 years. And of course, Compton, like LA, has a certain reputation here locally and of course nationwide. And when I got there, I had that in my mind. And I quickly learned within a week or two is exact opposite of what I thought. And so there are a lot of famous people who come from there that you know, faces you know, voices you've heard before, that came from Compton, probably went to high school there, and delivered back to the community and did quite well in their lives. There are other things of Compton you might not know. There is a cowboy stable there in Compton that has people of color who are cowboys, who will ride down the street on their horses. They're beautiful horses down the street from time to time, particularly on Thursdays. And it's a beautiful thing to watch. And then you have Compton has an airport, and they train young people how to fly planes. Not that jet behind that young man, but like usually like propeller planes and things like that. And they're very young. They're usually in high school, and they learn how to do that. But one thing I want to ask from the room here is, with all this pride and all this positivity and all this culture, let me ask the group, what is the tallest building in Compton? Think about that for a second.
In Compton?
The tallest building in Compton is the courthouse.
I was just going to say that.
Not a bank, not an office building, not a school, not a college, the courthouse. And it employs hundreds of people who come there every day. And some people find themselves in that situation. And what happens to them? I was on the top floor of the building and here on the 12th floor. That's where the courts were. And just below that was my office. And from there, I saw thousands of kids come through. And usually there, we would have about 1,000 cases come through across my desk. We would have to review. Some people had been there before, sometimes multiple times. Sometimes people were there for the very first time. And what I learned from that is that there was a dichotomy of people who came to the courthouse. And I would tell people the same thing. It's like, you know what? When you come here, there is 3 ways you can go. Okay? Some of you will come here just once and learn your lesson, do what you need to do, and then get out and never come back to the juvenile courthouse, never come back as an adult. Never come back to the courthouse at all unless you're a witness to something or you're just visiting. And the second group were people who came there one more time. Okay. They didn't learn the first time. They came back the second time, but the second time was the clincher for them. They, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be a part of this. So you'll never see me again. That's exactly what happened. I wouldn't see them in juvenile court. I would not see them in adult court either. And then there was the last 10%. And those are the ones, unfortunately, that end up tied up in the criminal justice system, sometimes injured or dead, sometimes in prison. And it takes them a while, if ever, for them to kind of get around. Some do at some point in their 20s and 30s, some a little later, 40s and 50s, sometimes even later, 60s. And so this discussion basically is just not for the 40 or the 50, for the 10. It's for everybody. And I want to make sure that everybody understands what happens, the consequences you face when you're in the juvenile system or the adult system, and knowing that it's not permanent. That is not your story. You can get out. And what I want to share with you are mechanisms to get out of that situation. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so it has impacts on you. And it can be several. For your family, stressing out your family, stressing out your mom. You go into court and it's serious, okay? That things can happen to you. You go to jail or prison or juvenile hall. This affects your ability to get public housing too. Having this conviction in your background can impact you. Not having enough money because you're spending time doing other things. So you're not focused on saving and investing for your future. You're not doing that because you're concerned about the present day. Education loans, not an ability to basically get education loans from the federal government, from the state government. That's impactful as well. And most importantly, employment and your income levels. I would tell young people, I would go to schools in Compton from time to time, particularly students who are struggling or not going to school at all. And I will tell them the biggest gift you can give your mother is your high school diploma. Because with your high school diploma, that opens up a world to you to go to college or work, have your own business, do different things. Without that, 90% of the jobs in our economy are not available to you unless you're an internet entrepreneur. And even then, it's difficult, okay? So I would tell them there are consequences coming in here, but you can fix them. My credo here today basically is just because you have past mistakes doesn't make it has to be permanent, okay? Particularly when you're young. And there's some exceptions here with that, of course, but for the most part, if you're younger and you do something, there's a way out. You don't have to do this, but you have to know the pathway. You have to know the tools or mechanisms, and you have to have the knowledge, the power of knowledge to get yourself out of this. And that's my role with you guys this afternoon. So you guys know how to do all that. Now, what I wanted to explain to you basically is California, as you probably know, is a very progressive and forgiving state. And it's a land of second chances. Now, I came here from Texas. Okay, I'm not born and raised here at all. And I came here because it's the best opportunity for me compared to where I was. And I could basically fulfill my dreams, remake myself again, and do different things. And that is how. Now, for somebody who's been in trouble before, it's not as fortunate to me, you still have that second chance to rebuild yourself. You got to know how to go about doing it. So here, now, if you're a juvenile, there are two pathways. And it's happening. By juvenile, I mean anybody under the age of 18 years old. All right. So there are certain offenses that are basically automatic for you, that your record is sealed. And by seal, I mean basically it's literally stapled together. It is separated from other files and then put away in a filing cabinet and eventually purged. So never ever sees it. Okay. So if you're doing something like stealing a car, vandalism, stealing from a store, person, even breaking into somebody's house, but they can't be there when you do it, even something like that, there is a pathway to rehabilitation. And so no one sees this conviction at all. It is literally sealed. It's dumped by the court automatically. You don't have to do anything. But the second pathway is a more difficult one. And that is when you do something more serious than stealing or driving a stolen car. That is if you're robbing somebody, murder, assaultive behavior, carjacking. It is not automatic, and it's not guaranteed that you'll get what you need to do, but you still have to take the step because a judge may find mercy with you and decide to do that. And this is how this happens, basically. You can seal your record with those serious offenses, but you have to start like right now. I mean, like today, if you're young. So for this avenue, you have to go to the probation department of the courthouse where your case was, if you can remember. And if you have it, you have your case number with you too. So remember, that makes it easier for them to find. And you got to remember which court department you went to. Now, most juvenile halls have maybe one or two courtrooms. That's all. And it's going to be in that courthouse most likely. So that will help you remember where that was. And with that information, you will go to the probation department. Okay. And you're going to do this thing. You're going to fill out a form that they'll give you. You tell them what you want to do. I want to seal my record. I was here as a juvenile years ago. This is impacting me now, and I need to fill out this form. Okay. You will do that. You fill out the form with all information, your name, your date of birth, all that stuff, your case number, everything. Your file will be located, okay, by probation. They will then give that to a judge to review it. And then a decision is made whether to seal your record or not. And when I was the deputy in charge of the Comp and Juvenile Division, I would get these sealing decisions all the time, every week, sometimes multiple times. And the judge would ask our opinion as far as what happened to that person. Should I do this or not? And most of the time I would say yes. That was a long time ago, and let this person go. They've been trouble-free for years, and they need to get on with their lives. Second chances. You shouldn't be burdened by this at all. But I'm telling you, all of you in the group here, that this is tougher than if you don't commit a serious crime. Again, there's no guarantee that you'll get relief from the court. There isn't. But you have to at least try to do this. Now, as I said before, when this happens, your file is stapled shut, literally like you see here in the picture, all around there. I was the one that did that sometimes, okay? Nobody could view the file, not even me, and I run the place. Okay? The file will be separated from the other files and put into a file cabinet. And every so often, we go to the file cabinet and purge the old cases, which means shred them and throw them away. That's what happened. So no one ever see it. That, okay, there we go. All right, so for juvenile crimes, sealing, dismissing, expungement are basically the same terms. It works the same way. But for adult crimes, it's different. Okay, for adult crimes, you have to be active in doing this. It's not passive. You have to actively seek this out and take the steps you need to take to get this out of your past. So for adult crimes, this is the downtown courthouse, you're in downtown LA, you have to go to the right courthouse, be it here, the airport court in Santa Monica, Compton, Pomona, wherever it happened. You have to go to that courthouse. You have to find the clerk's office as well. The clerk office, there's always a clerk office in a courthouse. There's also probation officers outside, clerk's offices outside that. But all of them are within a courthouse. Okay, so here, the avenue you're going to do, if you have a misdemeanor or a felony, is Penal Code Section 1203.4. You can Google search that yourself to find out what that is. And what I've done basically is condense it down to here to the bare essentials. Okay, the easiest way to do this, if you have a felony, and the felony is what we call a wobbler. It can be considered either a felony or a misdemeanor by the DA when they file the case, or it could be punished that way, a felony as a misdemeanor to settle the case. It can also be used by the court, the judge himself or herself, to decide whether the case should stay as a felony or be reduced down to a misdemeanor. So 1203.4 allows you to reduce certain felonies that are what we call wobblers down to misdemeanors. Now, usually what you have to do is you have to wait. You have to wait till your probation is expired on your felony, which is now 2 years. It used to be 3, longer. You have to wait a period of time and then wait a little bit longer to make sure that the court is satisfied that you're a different man or woman, you're a different person, and you're not who you were before. And by that, I mean no arrests, no convictions. You paid your fines. You paid back the victims of restitution. You've done everything you have to do all that. And once you do that, you'll petition the court to reduce your case. It's a form you use to reduce your case from a felony to a misdemeanor. But that isn't in the process. There's one more step you have to take, which is to wait another year while you're now looked at as now a misdemeanor and not a felon. You have to wait 1 year because probation for misdemeanors is 1 year. You wait 1 year, a little bit more time to make sure you're trouble-free. I know you're going to be, but to make sure the judge is satisfied with that. And most importantly, DAs like me are satisfied with that. And then you ask the court to once again now reduce your misdemeanor down and dismiss your case entirely. And when that's done, your conviction is stricken from the record, whether you pled guilty to it or you're convicted by jury. Dismissed like it never happened. And you can tell employers the same thing, okay? I have this case. It was dismissed because I'm a different person. Now, do you need a lawyer to do this? Not necessarily. Lawyers are very expensive. They charge by the hour, usually $200 and $250 per hour to do this. Most lawyers have paralegals. I have one. And sometimes in this realm, the lawyer hands this off to a paralegal to do the work, but charges you the lawyer rate. So for some things like this, you could probably do this yourself without legal representation. A lot of people do that. They come to court and do it themselves, and then they file their petition. A lot of people, when they do that, don't even come to court at all. The judge will either sometimes do it on the record without you being there, and the DA is there, and say case dismissed. Sometimes the judge will do that in his or her chambers, and the case will be dismissed that way. In other words, it's not an open court. So you don't need to be there. That's the easiest way. You save yourself a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of grief. But sometimes it gets a little more complicated. Okay? And so situations where you have a felony that cannot be reduced out to misdemeanor automatically, like a robbery, assaultive behavior, things like that, makes it more difficult. Or you've been to prison on that case because your prior history, or the case calls for prison, or the judge sentences you to prison. That is more complicated. Now, can you get this stuff expunged? My answer is maybe. Yes, maybe no. Okay, but surprisingly, even though you've been to prison, okay, you might be able to get your case expunged, which means dismissed like it never happened. But that depends upon a lot of factors we'll talk about here in a second. But let me give you some warnings here. There's certain things that cannot be expunged ever. DUIs. Those could be misdemeanors depending on how many you have. If you have 4 or more, that is a felony. Okay, it's more difficult. Serious felonies. You can imagine what that would mean, basically. Serious things you're doing. You'd be surprised of the list that's on there. That's Penal Code Section 1192.7. And that gives you a list. You can Google search that yourself to figure out exactly what is on that list. Okay, it's extensive. I'm not going to do that today. It's extensive. Okay, violent felonies is what you think it is. Violent conduct that you're doing. Okay, a violent felony, for example, could be breaking into somebody's house when somebody's there. Okay, a serious felony is breaking into someone's house when you're an adult and nobody's there. That sort of thing. We call when someone's present a hot burglar. That is violent and serious stuff that you're doing. Any case where you have to register as a sex offender of any kind with an adult or a child, that is a no-no, and that will probably most likely, not most likely, will never be expunged. No, that will not happen. So if this is something that's happened to you in your past, I'm sorry to say that stays with you. But there are some felonies that the judge will have mercy on you. And that's according to Penal Code Section 1203.41. This statute is barely 2 years old. In fact, it was enacted in 2023 in July. It became enacted then. It is brand new. And again, California, being a progressive state, wants to give its citizens chances to do all that, okay, to basically escape their past. But like I said, it's complicated. So the judge may, not shall, not must, may, up to his or her discretion, grant you this request and expunge this felony from your background. You have to wait up to 2 years to do this. When you file this motion petition with the court, you have to give notice to the district attorney so we know. And if we have any opposition, we can lodge that. You have to give us 15 days to do that. And we have to respond within a period of time to do that. Otherwise, we lose that opportunity to do that. You have to show you're a changed person. You're not what you were anymore. You do that by proof through, again, not being arrested, not getting convicted, getting letters from the public, people you know, doing charitable work if you need to do that, things like that to show the court that you're a good risk to escape this and not have this hanging around. Okay. Now, disclosure. We talked about that earlier about disclosing this to potential employers. Okay. For this code section, you only have to disclose this if you're doing a public job, federal, state, local. You have to disclose this. And what happened? For a private employer, if they ask you have any convictions, you had your case dismissed, the answer would be what? No. Right? You can say that, truthfully say that, because your case was in fact dismissed. There's no conviction there. Even though your case might be expunged, you can't own any firearms. Not in your car, not in your person, not in your house at all. Nothing. Okay. And again, you can't be convicted of a registrable offense, which would be a sex crime. You can't do that either. So that will not work for you. You will not get that expungement if that applies to you.
Todd,
Now,
allow me to interrupt for just a second. I got to know
of
this.
course.
So you're telling me that after their record is expunged, they're an adult, they cannot own a firearm to protect their household?
Nope.
Ever?
Ever. That's the law. Ever. All right. I know you feel a certain way about that. You know, the thing about that, that's the law that comes from Sacramento. They decided to do that as well as other provisions in the law to prevent you from doing certain things. For example, if you're a public official and you're convicted of a public official type crime and you can't hold office anymore, that's permanent. Okay, you can't hold office anymore, and that expungement, you'll not get an expungement, and that conviction will stay with you for the rest of your life. And there are other things you can look at yourself later on after this presentation to see what that means. Okay, I put that in there because I want everybody to know that. Okay, because I don't want anybody in kind of trouble because you have this, okay, in your background. I want to make sure you have full knowledge of that. Okay, I don't want anybody in this room or anybody you know be convicted of being an ex-con with a gun, which carries prison time. I don't want that to happen to anybody, so I have to tell you that. But that comes from Sacramento, and that's what they decided 2 years ago, January 2023, when they enacted this law and it was signed by the governor and became law in July of that year. That's what this is.
So help me understand this, you know, and I don't want to hold up because this actually does bother me a little bit. If your record is expunged, that means it's sealed, it's gone. Your juvenile record is sealed and it's gone.
Right.
Do they reopen your cases if they find you with a gun, or how do they prosecute you? If
That's a great question. The prior felony you have could be used against you if you're basically, as far as the law is concerned, from Sacramento, you're still an ex-convict and you have a weapon now. And so that prior can be used against you to charge you that way, Tony.
Wow.
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. And so, like I said before, people need to know that. Okay. And my thing about today's presentation is giving you all knowledge and letting you know what consequences are and my prediction of the future. Now, I can't advise you. I'm a DA. I really can't be a private attorney, advise you of any of this. What I can do is tell you to do your own personal research online or to consult with a criminal defense attorney. Now, when I made this presentation, before I spoke today, I consulted with two friends of mine. One is a private practice. The other two, actually three, the other two were former public defenders. I asked them, okay, to make sure I understood this right. And this is what they told me. And this is what I saw in my own personal research and finding this information out, and to make sure I told you the right things. So that's the lay of the law. Okay.
Yes,
Now,
sir.
all right. So I'm glad you asked that, though. Okay. But the last resort is this. Okay. If all else fails and there's no other steps for you, okay, it will take you a lot of time and drama to get this done. It will take years, if ever. So let's just say you don't get an expungement. You don't. Okay. There's another pathway called certificate of rehabilitation. That is something that a Superior Court judge has to sign off on and approve. And there's certain provisos in it you have to go over. One, you have to live in California for 5 years continuously. The second thing, you have a waiting period from the time you're out of prison, you're off probation, you're off of parole. You have to wait at least 7 years. I see a situation where the gap of time between the end of your case is 10 years. So the other pathways, expungement, sealing, and so on, reduction, it's much faster. This is longer. And again, during that time period, you have to be trouble-free. The DA's office is saying this as well, and the court will basically notify us of this, and we'll have a say as far as whether this request should be granted or not. So this is a lot of time, a lot of drama. Which is more time and drama is a pardon. And I'm sure you guys are familiar with that from President Trump pardoning a bunch of people in January. He became the president, right? So every governor, every president has a right to pardon whoever they want for whatever reason they want, and doesn't have to explain a thing to the public. He just do it. And Governor Newsom is no different. The governor of California. He can pardon you from this. But you can imagine what it'd take to get his attention to review your case and pardon you. Okay? It happens. I've seen it. I've been here long enough to see people get pardons. And usually it happens around the Easter season. It happens sometimes in the beginning of summer in June. And it also happens around the holidays, around Christmas. He will grant pardons, usually about 20 at a time. I can imagine how many people in the situation we have in California, thousands. And usually he picks out particular cases for particular reasons, for reasons only known to him. But I see situations where somebody has a defense, somebody was very young, somebody was suffering through drug and alcohol abuse, different things. You will see this coming up, I guarantee, the next 6 months or so. You're probably watching the Menendez case on TV and have some knowledge of it and what my office decided to do with it yesterday. Okay, for those brothers, they could do certain things, and one of them is to get a pardon from the governor of California. Will he do that? I don't know. You're shaking your head, Tony. It's probably right, because you know why. As the group knows, he's former governor. He will be former governor at some point. And 2028 is our next presidential election. I guarantee that Governor Newsom will run for president of the United States as a Democrat. And I'm not sure how he would feel about pardoning what would be an infamous person or an infamous case on his record. Because you know some of his opponents in his own party and the Republican Party will basically comment on that. So he may decide for his own political survival and political future not to do that. That's a Menendez brother. It does not apply to you, of course. But I'm just saying, doing something like that, getting a pardon from the governor or getting approval from the judge takes a minute. Okay, for these situations and expungements for serious felonies, violent felonies, things like that, or felonies that are not wobblers, you may want to consult an attorney. Okay, in fact, I advise you to do that to make sure you're basically doing the right thing, file the proper paperwork, and getting advocacy in court. This is not something you can do yourself. And like the old adage goes, and I learned this in law school, Okay, if you represent yourself, you're a very foolish person. You're a very foolish client and lawyer. You should never represent yourself on something very serious like this. You should have an advocate for yourself. Just like if you're signing a contract for a sports team or entertainment, whatever, you have an agent, right? To advocate for you. This is no different. You want to make sure every possible consequence is covered and that you're thinking about the future down the line, how this might affect you. Now, can the stuff be found by employers? Yep. When I was a juvenile years ago, I would get letters from employers, usually out of state. I'm not sure how they did that and go into the database and find this information, but they would find it. Not very often, but every once in a while it would come up. Usually a situation where somebody's handling money or they're dealing with a security job or security clearance, things like that. They would ask me about a past offense from a young person years ago. And I would tell them the case got dismissed, the person successfully completed probation, the person's not been in trouble, the person only had this one contact, and I'll write that letter on behalf of that person, and the employer will be satisfied with that. Now, again, how they do this, I don't know. I don't even have access to that database myself. I know we do, but I don't have access to that. Employers might. To get the stuff wiped from your digital record, I would recommend, again, consulting an expert in this area to make sure that you do all you can to wipe this record clean, digitally and actual hard copy. But I'll make sure you guys know this because it can be found. I've seen it where it has been found, and I've been asked about it. Now, I'm hoping you guys got something from this. And again, when I was the boss of juvenile, I saw this all the time. People transforming their lives and getting out of the system and into basically their future. So going to college, getting their GED, finishing high school, getting a good paying job, finding housing, good housing, making money, changing their lives and improving. I saw that all the time. In fact, at one time, so you don't notice, I was walking on a campaign thing. A guy, an old African-American gentleman, had been to prison on a very serious case. He got out, was on parole for a period of time and finished that up. And then he began his own trucking company very successfully. Okay. And he was, in my estimation, in his 50s. Okay. So he turned his life around, had a business, was successful at it, and was making money and was telling me what kind of cars he was driving now compared to what his life was before. And I probably told him, like, this is how you go about doing certain things. Okay. And I told him to consult a lawyer to do all that. And hopefully he did that. That happened. I saw him in October of last year.
Wow.
Okay.
Nice.
So I tell young people this, I guess it applies to everybody here, is that your dreams can take you wherever you want to go. But it has to be realistic. You have to have a plan to do that. And most important, you have to put your back into it. You have to work very hard to accomplish things. Now, today's exercise basically was, and I see this world this way, as insiders and outsiders. Outsiders don't know anything. Outsiders don't have connections. Outsiders don't have access to things. They don't know. And they're relying upon their talent and their merit to get through. And sometimes that works. Sometimes that doesn't. Now, today, I'm hoping you guys are at least insiders when it comes to dealing with getting out of the system and reclaiming your life when you've been in trouble before. Now you know how to do it. And I've given you some tools on how to go about doing that. Okay. And of course, you still have to meet people. You still have to get lucky here and there. And you have to still have sponsors and people will support you through this. Okay. There's a difference between people who basically live a life of luxury with the finest schools and all that, and people like myself and everybody here. And that was access. Okay. I didn't totally talk about this later. I didn't know certain things about financial security and financial planning till later on in life at all, because no one talked to me about this other than my dad. And my dad talked to me about this when I was in college, then law school. Other people have an advantage over us. Okay. Are they smarter than us? Hell no. Okay. I saw a lot of people, incompetent, brilliant people. They just didn't know what to do, how to go about it. And once they knew, they took off. Now, I want to close with a person that I knew. His name was Denzel. And I first met Denzel when I was doing student truancy hearings in Compton. He went to a local Compton high school, and Denzel wasn't going to school. This wasn't going on at all. He's flunking everything. And normally we would have a student come before us in front of me, probation officers, school officials, police officers, and explain themselves. Denzel can. He was 17 years old. And let me tell you, Denzel blew me away. Denzel was one smart guy. He had leadership qualities. He had foresight. He had insight. He was loquacious. And I would joke with Denzel, man, when you grow up, you're going to be the mayor of Compton, brother. Gonna be. Okay? Or run your own company, do whatever you want, man. You run for mayor of Compton, I'll vote for you right now. Smart dude. But got to go to school. Got to get out of that lifestyle you're in. He's involved in street stuff, street crime stuff. Got to get out of it. So me and others decided, because Denzel's so smart, we said to send him to Rockway Engineering over in El Segundo. And we provided a bus for Denzel to go over there. And we went over there, the engineers over there, okay, were very pleased with Denzel. They loved Denzel because he was smart and he asked questions. He had a future. And they tried to convince him to go off to college and study engineering and come over there and work in that industry. But like I said, Denzel still want to do that. So Denzel turns 18, becomes an adult, okay, and he still has that foot in that life. And eventually, that life caught up to Denzel. He was murdered. And the case is unsolved to this day. I think it's gang related. It might have something to do with a female person he was with. We're not really sure. But it's still unsolved. So I connected to Denzel when that happened. I went to his funeral. And there were young people there, old people there. And I just thought to myself, what a waste. He was right there. Well, I'm telling the group today, for young people, old people, you always have choices. Okay? You don't have to do certain things. And there's always a way out, no matter what your mistakes are. You can fall down and get up and brush the dirt off your shoulder and get going. And not just this, but your family life, your financial life, whatever you choose to be. It doesn't have to be this way if you choose a different path. And that's what I want to leave you with. I can't go through another Denzel. I can't. And I think about this all the time. That's why I brought it up to you. I think about it all the time. What happened and what it could have been. Okay. He would be now 25 years old. And post-college, maybe, and into his life with a family and everything else. So that's all I have for you right now. If you guys have any questions, I'll take them. I see it as a chat room. I've not been looking at it. Maybe Tony could get in there. And if you have questions that you want to ask me, feel free. I'm here for you to answer those questions as best I can. Again, as a DA, I can't give legal advice. I can't. But what I can tell you what the law is and my impression of what happens, what I've seen before. I can give you that. But I can't represent you and I can't advise you that way. I'm sorry. So, but if you have any questions, I'll be glad to take them.
I definitely have a few, Mr. Hicks. I'd like to open up the floor and let someone else jump in there before I get started with my litany of questions. Does anyone else have any questions right now? I know there was a couple of comments that came through. One of my Pastor Josie, she's out in Greenville, North Carolina. She wants to check her information out there. And she's coming off mute. She wants to check her information out in North Carolina. You had a question, sure, Pastor Josie?
Yes. First of all, I want to say hello, everyone, and to thank him for the information and taking the time to share with us. I am in North Carolina, and I know you guys are out in Cali, and I wanted to say that I probably want to look into that because I personally don't have that experience, but I do know many others who could benefit in having an expunged record. And I don't know, I know you said that you all are in the forefront, so we're kind of behind. So if y'all just did it 2 years ago, I don't know where we stand in North Carolina, but I would love to know.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that. And each state is different. Some states are more liberal than others. So California is like that. Believe it or not, Utah is like that. Washington State is like that. They're like here, like California. Other states, not so much, particularly Texas and Florida. Okay. I'm not sure about North Carolina. I've never practiced there. I've only visited there, so I do not know. And that's something that you can look online for yourself by simply Google searching and Google searching expungement ceiling under North Carolina law.
Okay.
That's simple.
But for felonies that will be eligible for expungement, that's a federal thing. That would not be nationwide.
Federal, they don't have such a thing. They don't do that in the federal government. They don't do it. So we have a system called federalism, and so each state decides for themselves what the law will be, what expungements would be, what the punishment would be, and each state is different. The laws are completely different. What happens is completely different. The only thing that's guaranteed for you is your constitutional rights and the right to have a jury trial in front of 12 of your peers. That's the only thing that's universal. Everything else is different, state by state.
Okay. I'm gonna jump in there and ask this question while everyone's formulating theirs. Okay. Can you just one more time explain to me the benefits versus the pros and cons between a certificate of rehabilitation versus an expungement?
The first pro, basically, or con, and actually both, would be certificate of rehabilitation takes forever. And you'll have to have legal representation to do it. Okay? And it takes time, and it is not guaranteed you're going to get it. I know from practice that some judges are reluctant to do it. Okay? Either expungements or definitely certificate of rehabilitation. They're just not comfortable doing that, particularly for whatever reason they may have, or the DAs oppose it, or whatever it is. Okay? Expungement is the best way to go, in my opinion, because the track is much easier and much smaller to do, I think. Okay? Because under certificate, you have to be trouble-free for a long time. Like I said, between 7 and 10 years. Whereas an expungement, you could probably do it between, let's see, when I tell you, you could probably do it between 2 to 5 years, probably somewhere in there, and be able to do that. And that's very doable, particularly if you are a changed person, and that should be no trouble for you at all.
Right.
Just time. That's all. And the time there requirement basically is the state wants to make sure you are who you say you are. Okay, that you're different, and we don't have to worry about you anymore before we give you that benefit. And that's exactly what it is. It's a benefit of mercy by the state of California to allow this to happen. Like I said, California is very forgiving, but there are limits to that forgiveness.
Right. Pastor Bowie has a question. Yes, sir,
Sure.
Pastor Bowie.
Yes. Suppose you have a person that they have not gone for an expungement. And let's say they got in trouble 20 years ago and they've never been in trouble. Okay. Why doesn't the system look at cases like that and personally just look to relieve those people without them even filing? You know, what I've discovered with the system is that the system tends to lean heavy on penal and is too lean too heavy on one side, or less on rehabilitation.
That's a question, Pastor. There's only one avenue where it's like that, where we will dismiss cases outright after a certain period of time. And that's for marijuana convictions. We've been doing that. The federal government's been doing that. The state government's been doing that for many, many years. That's the extent of it all, Pastor. As far as other felonies concerned, no such mechanism exists. And that's why we have this here in place, because the state of California, as well as other states, have decided not to do that. So even though you're trouble-free, you made a mistake when you're 22 years old, had a bad day, but other than that, you've been trouble-free ever since. You're now in your 40s. That's still with you. So you still have to actively go to court and seek this remedy out. This is the way it is. It's the law.
Okay.
And thank you for asking it.
You're welcome. And thank you for being here. You've been very informative and have done a good job. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad you got something out of this. Hope everybody did too as well.
So Michelle Smith is dropping some websites in there. I don't know what the websites are for. Michelle Smith, can you tell me what these websites are for, please?
Yes, someone had asked about information for the expungement. So I just listed the California site, the California Department of Justice site, and then the Federal Department of Justice site. I know that in
Excellent.
California, and I believe at the federal level, you can request your own records. It's called a records review. And there are forms that you can download and fill out and submit and get your records sent back to you personally without having to go like through the police department and stuff. I know
Wow.
because I've been there, done that.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I'm glad we're talking about this. I didn't know that because I usually don't. That's not my area of practice, and I'm glad you mentioned that for the group. That's fantastic information to know to go about doing this. That's
Yeah,
great.
thank you so much
Thank
for
you very
that.
much for saying that.
You're
Um,
welcome.
anyone else have any questions? I have one more, Todd. I know you got to get to your train, but I have one more.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I got a chance to go out to the courthouse, and I got a chance to sit into a transfer hearing. Now I
Yeah.
know transfer hearings might not have anything to do with finance, but I was very curious about that, and I didn't have a chance to talk to the judge about exactly how that works. So, as I understand it, a transfer hearing is where they determine whether or not to try someone as an adult. Is that correct?
Correct.
Can
That's
you
correct.
explain a little bit more about that, please?
Sure. When I was first doing it, called it fitness hearings, now they're transfer hearings. Basically, the judge will have to look at several factors. For example, the seriousness of your offense, whether you can be rehabilitated or not while you're still young,
Hmm.
if you have escalating conduct, things like that. And there are many other factors that the judge weighs to determine whether your case should be sent to adult court or remain in juvenile court. Now, Tony, you were with Judge John Lawson.
Yes, sir.
Okay. For the group, Judge John Lawson and I are good friends. In fact, I saw him 2 weeks ago. Okay. He was a defense attorney in the public defender's office, became a judge, and chose to go down to the juvenile division. And he's been there ever since. And the reason for that, he's very effective. He's the most effective juvenile judge I've ever seen in my life because he's a person of color and he has expectations for people.
Mm.
There are other judges, not to be mentioned here, who are different than us, who have low expectations of us, okay, and don't expect a whole lot of us. And excuse behavior, but Judge Loss is completely different. He expects the most out of them. He always tells them, when you come here, you stay out of trouble, obviously, young man or young woman, and you're going to get your high school diploma. I'm going to make you do that. Now, for the room you don't know, is that Judge John Lawson's father was James Lawson, a reverend, a longtime reverend here in Los Angeles. And for those, you might want to look him up. James Lawson marched with Dr. King. So he was an advisor to Dr. King. And when you see pictures of Dr. King at a protest going down the street somewhere in a church, you look around at who's around him, you'll see the Reverend James Lawson with him. James Lawson passed away last year.
Mm.
I've met him going across many times. Okay. And let me tell you this, right? So when we're all around Reverend Lawson, okay, we're all grown men, we straighten up and button up. It's a serious man. Okay. And was philosophical about everything, saw the large approach to everything. Okay. So that's who he was, those kind of connections. He's a great man. So for transfer hearings, it used to be with fitness hearings, it wasn't easy to do that, but it was easier than it is now. Now, when I was in comp and juvenile, I would, depending on what the crime was, I would seek a fitness hearing maybe 10 times a year for the whole year on 10 cases. That's all. And then of those 10 cases, I would change my mind sometimes and not want to have the case sent to adult court and have to stay in juvenile court. And these were cases that involved murdering somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so something like that. Most of the time, in fact, most majority of the time, those cases stayed with me. And I believe that we could do what we need to do at the lower level to change someone's life. Like I said before, that worked 90% of the time. So I saw that, but that small percentage of people who do more violent acts, some of them ended up in adult court. And once you're in that system, it's hard to get out, particularly if you're doing violent stuff, you're in a gang, you're doing street crime. It's hard to get that life behind you. It just is.
Mm-hmm.
So when I would go off to schools, I would tell people that, young people that all the time. whether they're honor students or students who are failing and in jeopardy of dropping out. I'll say the same things to them. I'll tell them the tallest building in Compton is the courthouse, and I want to see you there. Unless you want to visit me, want to do that, or you just want to visit somebody else, I don't want to see you there. But if you insist about coming in there and doing things, okay, it's up to you. But I don't want to see you there. This is how you avoid going there. And I will tell them.
Wow. Wow. Well, if does anyone else have any questions before we get out of here?
I do.
Okay. I see Zoom user. Who's Zoom user?
Christina Faulkner.
Hi, Christina.
Hi, how are you?
I'm
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. I'm blessed. Thank you. My question is, I have someone who is about 50 years old and just got a DUI, and they do not know what to do as far as getting through this. What advice would you be able to give to help this person get through it?
Get an attorney.
Get an attorney. All right.
Right, because even your first conviction, you will be basically. If I told you what the fines were, it would shock and blow your mind. It would.
Ooh.
How much money you have to spend on your attorney, how much money you have to pay in fees and penalty assessments, what happens to you, what happens to your license. There's so many different things that can happen to you. So 2 things you want to do: have an attorney for your criminal proceeding, and have an attorney for your DMV proceedings, separate stuff. So the DMV can take action, get your license, despite what the court will do, despite what happens in your case. They can take action. So you want to make sure you have an attorney for both types of hearings, the court and a DMV hearing.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Good question.
All right, so I guess I'm gonna close this out. I want to acknowledge a few people on here and appreciation for them coming on because of the people that they represent. Pastor Josie out in North Carolina, she has a congregation that, as she stated, she has a lot of people that will be able to benefit from this information. Mr. Hicks, thank you so much for that. Pastor Bowie is here, and he also knows Judge Johnson, so that should be a great conversation they're going to have soon. Pastor Bowie, Joseph Ellison was on. He gave you a shout out in the chat room. I don't know if you got a chance to see that. And there's a few other people on here. Pastor Larry Houston is on here as well. Pastor Houston, you know I got to make you say something before you get out of here. Come off mute.
Hey everyone, God bless you, Tony. Thank you all for sharing. Everything I've heard over the last 25 to 30 minutes has been very helpful. I hope to hear more.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much, Michelle Smith, Miss Margarita, Deborah, Christina. Thank you so much for jumping on, Miss Annette, and all the guests. And if there's no more questions, did you want to close us out, Mr. Hicks?
I sure will. And thank you all for your listening ears, your great questions. I hope this was helpful for you. For those who know people like this, I wish you the best of luck with this. And then don't give up, be persistent, and follow through. And with that, I want to God bless you all. Take care. Have a great week, okay? And bless you in the future and all your future endeavors. Take care, everybody.
Take care, everybody. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Tony.
Yes, sir. You got it.
Great job. I got to get on another Zoom now, but I'll be in touch. Let's talk soon.
Absolutely, Pastor. Looking forward to it.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye.